Ohio State is the number 2 team in the country, and Penn State is projected to win by at least 18 points. So will they? Let's make some final predictions.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State Wrestling, and as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. My name is Zach Seyko, and I'm your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State Wrestling and Penn State Football. Today's show is brought to you by Mazda. We put the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work. Now that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Friendly reminder to let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. This is one final time to get your predictions in, what you're looking forward to most about this dual meet. I'm going to give you my final predictions, match by match. Overall, I want to start with the best case scenario for both teams because I saw a projection that was put out. Penn State expected to win by at least 18 points over Ohio State. This is the number 2 team in the country. This implies that Penn State is expected to win. If you take bonus points out of the equation, Penn State would, in theory, win the duel 24-6. That means they take 8 matches out of 10, which is reasonable. I think it's fairly reasonable. Jesse Mendez would be a favorite at 141. And we're going to talk about 141. Is it going to be Braeden Davis? Is it going to be Nate Desmond? 285, heavyweight. Nick Feldman, understandably so, would be a favorite over Cole Mirasola. After that, you got to take Luke Lilledahl being the projected favorite since he is ranked higher. Okay, I guess in theory, Ben Davino could be considered a favorite, but other than a high school matchup, Marcus Blaze has won every single time they have met over the course of their wrestling careers. So history says this is Blaze's match to lose, even though he's technically ranked lower. But then 49, Penn State would be favored. 57, with no Brandon Cannon, PJ Duke is going to be an overwhelming favorite at 57. Mitchell Messenbrink for obvious reasons. Levi Haines being the number 1 overall wrestler at his weight class. Rocco Welsh at 184. Josh Barr at 197. Once again, this is setting up to be a dual meet where Penn State should be in control from start to finish. And that's what I've said about Ohio State. If they want to have any impact on this matchup, it's starting at the lightweights, building momentum the way they have all season long, because you have Nick Buzakis, you have Ben Davino, you have Jesse Mendez. It's easy to get out in front and get bonus points along the way as well if the dual meet typically starts at 25, right? Of course, and that's what we expect for the most part there. If it doesn't, so be it. But I think that also helps for Ohio State. That helps Penn State if it's not at the lightweight, because again, that's where Ohio State was able to really help itself as a team this season, was being able to sweep the first 3 weight classes if and when it started at 25. Now, Cale Sanderson, and I agree with what Cale Sanderson said, hey, we trust our lightweights, okay? 41, of course, Jesse Mendez is a Hodge Trophy contender, but Lilledahl and Blaze, I mean, it's not like Buzakis and Davino are significantly better. And we're here to make the argument on this side of things that Lilledahl should be favored in this matchup and Blaze should be favored in this matchup. So the best case scenario for Penn State is 9-1. I think, and that's a realistic best case scenario. That's not, well, if everything breaks in Penn State's favor, that's if Cole Mirasola, that's the only one that would be a surprising victory, I guess, in a sense. And even I wouldn't be personally that surprised. Mirasola has been close. He's shown that he is right there in the mix with other elite wrestlers, but they always get the best of him in the end. But the difference is a takedown, a scramble, a roll that's just not going his way. So I'm not going to be totally shocked if Mirasola pulls off an upset victory, but it would be an upset. So that is the best case scenario for Penn State, 9-1. The best case scenario for Ohio State, in my opinion, is 6-4. Still in favor of Penn State, though. they would win that heavyweight bout, Jesse Mendez, and then take the 2 toss-ups. That would be Nick Buzakis over Luke Lilledahl and Ben Davino over Marcus Blaze. In theory, could Penn State lose a couple of bouts that they're not supposed to? Again, it goes back to my original point when we just identified the major storylines going into this one. Which upset are you picking? Ethan Stiles over Shane Van Ness? I guess that one is the most likely upset for Ohio State over Penn State, if you will, because I don't see Luke Geog over Josh Barr. Dylan Fishback over Rocco Welsh. Carson Kharchla, okay, against Levi Haines. Hey, that's a top 5 matchup. That's a 1 takedown match a year ago. But Levi Haines is still at the top, at that 74-pound weight class. So the realistic best case scenarios, Ohio State, if everything's working their way, they win 4 bouts. Mendez, Feldman, you get Buzakis, you get Davino. So you sweep the lightweights, and that gives them a chance. That gives them an opportunity. But I have confidence that Shane Van Ness would be able to stop any momentum at that point. PJ Duke would be able to get bonus points. And these victories, Mendez has bonus point potential. But Buzakis against Lilledahl, difference is it's going to be a decision one way or another. Davino versus Blaze, decision one way or another. Mendez, bonus point potential. Feldman versus Mirasola. I guess supposedly it could get out of hand in favor of Nick Feldman, which is a possibility, which is why he's going to be favored here, because there are, in my mind, more outcomes where Feldman wins and by a certain margin. But Mirasola, in a different setup, you wrestle that 10 times. Would Feldman win all 10 of those? Probably not. Mirasola would probably get a few of those. But there's a matchup where Feldman wins by major decision. So there's an opportunity for bonus points, but nothing like a tech fall or a pin or anything like that. So the best case scenarios, Penn State wins 9 out of 10. Ohio State wins 4 out of 10. Now, how are those matchups going to, so that's generally speaking, how are these matchups actually going to go down? We're going to go pretty quickly here as we got to get through 10 weight classes in 2 segments, 125 all the way up to heavyweight as usual. That is coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by Indeed. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, location, and it saves time, because you're spending less energy sorting through mismatches and finding that ideal candidate. So with sponsored jobs, your post will get seen by candidates who are actually a fit. Now here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That is Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years, and that's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care most about, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of curling matches that start slow and then get intense really quickly, speed skating races that are decided by mere inches, hockey games that feel different right from the opening face-off. Even niche events become must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. Check out FanDuel at FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. That is FanDuel. Play your game. Let's start at 125, where we might get a preview of the national championship at this weight class. Number 1 versus number 2. Penn State and Ohio State, number 1 versus number 2 at 125. Lilledahl versus Buzakis. And they have a ton of similarities. It's ironic. Let me give you this one that you might not know. Okay, so they both went to the same high school in Wyoming Seminary. That's not even the most interesting data point here. It's the fact that, okay, Lilledahl and Buzakis are both undefeated this season and have one unofficial loss. Lilledahl lost to Nate Desmond at the Army Black Knight Invitational. Guess who Buzakis lost to? He actually lost to Brendan McCrone, his own teammate. So both of these wrestlers have that going for them, that their only blemish this season is from a fellow teammate. And remember, Lilledahl did get pinned by Brendan McCrone last season, 1 year ago around at this time. So I can understand the people that say, well, Buzakis, he's a better version of Brendan McCrone, which is ironic in itself because, well, McCrone beat Buzakis. But McCrone, same thing, wrestles very well with his mat wrestling. He is looking for the fall. He's looking to use his strength. Buzakis does the same thing. And Lilledahl wants to be fast. He wants to get as many takedowns as possible. Buzakis is going to try to slow this one down. Lilledahl is going to try to speed this one up. I don't think Buzakis can go takedown for takedown with Lilledahl, which is why he's going to try to not let him do that. So I'm anticipating this goes to late in the third period, potentially sudden victory. Where I get skeptical is if this goes to tiebreaker. I think Buzakis, if he is able to get it all the way to tiebreaker, that favors him. Okay, let's be honest about it. That favors him. But Lilledahl, I think, is going to be able to get that match-winning takedown. If it goes to sudden victory, so be it. I can see this easily being 1-1 in the third period, and then in the final 30 seconds, Lilledahl gets that final takedown, which is what I'm going to go with. Lilledahl by decision in a low-scoring bout. We go to 133, where this feels like a 1 versus 2 matchup, even though Ben Davino, behind Lucas Bird and Marcus Blaze, is still ranked number 4 in the Intermat rankings. Other than a high school matchup that they have, Marcus Blaze has won every single other matchup, from when they were kids to when they were in high school to now when they started to meet on the freestyle circuit as well. It's gone every way for Blaze except for one instance here. And it's going to be no different than Lilledahl versus Buzakis, in my opinion. Low scoring, high stakes. It's who's going to get that takedown. And it's truly a toss-up. Both 25 and 33 are toss-up bouts. I like Blaze, though, because I think he is much more difficult to score on than Ben Davino is. And I mean, when you're 20-0, you're already difficult to score on as it is. But Blaze, I do think, is in another tier ahead of Davino, and that's going to be the difference here. So similar setup here, where this is 1-1 and might end up being 4-1 with a takedown. Maybe it's 4-2 because there's a late escape by Davino in this instance. Another one that's going to go down to the wire in the third, or definitely to sudden victory. And hey, maybe even tiebreaker. And that might be Davino's plan, because the one victory that he did get went to tiebreaker when they were in high school. 141. Some people are you curious if Nate Desmond's going to get the call here? If he's going to wrestle, burn his red shirt, right? That's not going to be the case here. We talked about it with Jeff Byers. We speculated on it throughout the week because, hey, Nate Desmond wrestled against Michigan. That's surprising. But Davis was dealing with two separate issues that we found out from Cale Sanderson. One, the hand injury, or that was related to the scooter incident, but that didn't seem to be that big of a deal. He was also dealing with what sounds like a skin issue that Cale didn't really give a lot of details, and that's understandable. But Davis is the starter, as Jeff reiterated. He's a true 141 pounder. Desmond, his plan initially was at 125 to be the backup to Luke Lilledahl, and then took over at 141 with the injury to Aaron Nagel, pulling off Braeden Davis of his red shirt and getting him prepped to get back in the lineup. I agree with Davis being the guy going forward because I think it is a waste of a season for Desmond when he is not a full 141 pounder. It's almost a disservice to him. Is he good? Is he capable? Could he be on the podium? Yes, but I don't think he's at his full potential. I will take Davis in the lineup this time around. And then when Desmond actually gets, a full slate to work on this weight class, which it seems like that's going to be the case, then go for it. We're talking about Penn State versus Ohio State, though. Jesse Mendez, either way, is going to be in a situation where it was bonus point possibilities with either of Davis and against Desmond as well. Mendez is that good. I don't know how either of them are going to score on him. I could see this one. It's, for me, between Mendez and Davis, I would like to think that this is going to be a major decision with a late takedown in the third that's, hey, if you're Mendez, I got to score points. I got it. I got time. And then you go and get that final takedown because also you're still better conditioned than Davis. We have seen that Davis's conditioning has not been up to par, again, because he's coming off of the red shirt. He wasn't expecting to wrestle this season. You always got to be prepared for any moment. Not the argument here. Still, the conditioning, it still needs to ramp up. It still needs to get better. I think Davis will be in a better spot to keep this from getting ugly, but Jesse Mendez is just in a class of his own, right? 149, Shane Van Ness against Ethan Stiles. We know that Ethan Stiles is a funky wrestler. He wants to get into scrambles, and he is tough to take down, but that plays into Shane Van Ness's favor. This is what Van Ness wants to do. Van Ness wants to get into these scrambles. He wants to get into these. So even if Van Ness were to give up a takedown, lose a scramble, we saw that against Carter Young of Maryland. Went down 7-1, gave up a scramble, gave up some back points, and then he was able to rattle off 30 points in the final 2 frames. I will take Van Ness here because the matchup, the history shows us he's pinned Ethan Stiles before, but Van Ness, this just sets up nicely for him at 49. This Ethan Stiles is a problem for a few other wrestlers, but not for Van Ness. I'll take Van Ness here, even though this is one that's deemed as an upset possibility. I have still all the confidence in the world in Van Ness. 57, Brandon Cannon. He's not in the lineup. And it's just for the sake of college wrestling fans and spectators, we're just going to have to wait. We're going to have to hope that this one plays out of the Big Ten tournament and NCAA's, right? I'd like to see both, not just one or the other. But Brandon Cannon is not expected to be in the lineup here. It is either going to be Daxton Chase or Landon DeSalle. And PJ Duke very well could win by tech fall easily or pin. Either way, you're getting bonus points here out of PJ Duke. So in the first half of the dual meet, Penn State decision, Ohio State major decision, Penn State decision. With honestly, I didn't give a score on that one. I'll go major decision for Shane Van Ness. So Penn State major decision and PJ Duke tech fall or pin. So Penn State leading 4-1 at that point with a ton of bonus points. Now the second half of the duel, Mitchell Messenbrink picks back up, and then we got a potential finals matchup with Levi Haines and Kharchla. Dylan Fishback, good luck against Rocco Welsh, who's going up against his former team. We're going to talk about these bouts coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda. This is Mazda's moving the game forward for those who show there's more to the score than just what's on the screen. This is a moment where we highlight an athlete, a play, a fan, a coach, and I'm going to go with Nate Desmond. Nate Desmond, as a true freshman, bumping up 2 weight classes. Penn State wrestler went out and defeated a veteran of the sport, a former place winner at NCAA's, and Dylan Ragusin at the Michigan dual meet. Very impressive to go down to sudden victory with someone like that. These are the moments that remind us of what it really takes to raise the bar. It's that extra work off the mat. Dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and I never quit. We put the same passion into every model. Highlights make the real. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Mazda, move and be moved. Messenbrink's going to go up against most likely Patty Gallagher. There's been other Ohio State wrestlers that have been filling in. But if it is Patty Gallagher, I mean, it's Mitchell Messenbrink. This isn't, well, could it be a major decision? It's tech fall or pin for me. I don't really need to spend a lot of time on this because Mitchell Messenbrink is Mitchell Messenbrink. He wins by major decision against someone like Mikey Caliendo, right? And Patty Gallagher is a good wrestler, but he struggled this year against the upper echelon of talent at 165. That's below Mitchell Messenbrink, so this is easily tech fall territory for me. All right, the one that is much more intriguing, Levi Haines versus Kharchla. Kharchla comes into this dual meet as a finals contender, in my opinion. I do believe that Kharchla is in that group with Chris Minto and Patrick Kennedy and Simon Ruiz as potential challengers to Levi Haines. But that's what we're talking about here. Tier 1 is Levi Haines, and it's just Levi Haines. That second category, it could be anybody that emerges. Simon Ruiz, Patrick Kennedy, Chris Minto, or Carson Kharchla here. Now, Kharchla, how healthy is he at this point in the season? Only he knows. Only Ohio State knows. We can speculate because we talked to Nick Costco and he says, hey, Kharchla is dealing with bumps and bruises. If that's the case, and same thing, I don't remember at this point if I pointed it out with Buzakis, and I hope I did. But Lilledahl is going up against Nick Buzakis, who might not be 100%. If Kharchla is not 100% in this matchup against Levi Haines, I mean, this is one that could go from, hey, a takedown's the difference to 2 takedowns, right? I don't think we're in a situation where Kharchla is going to be leading going into the third period like they were last year, and then Levi Haines gets a late takedown to win the bout. I think this is one where Haines is going to get out in front and lead for most of the matchup, and it could potentially go into major decision territory. That's just how good Levi Haines is. But Kharchla does a lot of things well that Levi Haines does. He's got heavy hips. He's as strong as it gets. I would argue that Haines is 1A and Kharchla is 1B in terms of who's the strongest 74-pounder in this class. So Kharchla's defense is going to be on point. It's the conditioning for me that really separates Levi Haines from Kharchla. 184, Dylan Fishback. They bring him in as a transfer. Top 10 matchup. If you've been following along here on Locked On Nittany Lions, you know the step that Rocco Welsh has taken. I have no more questions or skepticism, and it's not because I'm doubting Rocco Welsh. It was because, look, you defeated Angelo Ferrari. You kind of reached the mountaintop in the middle of the season. Just how do you respond to that? In sports, the way that Rocco Welsh is operating now, where that just hasn't fazed him. He continues to roll along, move along like business as usual. And if he's operating that way, good luck, because I have not seen any weaknesses or any signs of, hey, Welsh could get picked off here. He could get upset. So Dylan Fishback, one of the talented wrestlers at 84, but not a true title contender like Rocco Welsh is. So I will take Welsh, and this could potentially be a major decision. I will go by decision because Fishback is still an All-America contending wrestler. So he's not, bonus points are hard to come by against him. So I will take Welsh by decision in this one. I guess I didn't give a prediction for Haines as well to be quite exact. I say decision too, close to a major decision, but decision there. Josh Barr, this could be major decision, maybe even a tech fall. And Luke Geog is a top 10 wrestler, someone that's going to be contending for a spot on the podium. But when he's wrestled against common opponents, Rocky Elam, or opponents, when I say common opponents, I mean opponents that Josh Barr is going to contend with for a championship. We're talking Rocky Elam, we're talking Joey Novak, okay? Both of those matchups, Geog lost both of them, and he was shut out in both of them. I think that's pretty telling. Barr, though, is at another level offensively. So 15-0. It sounds crazy, I don't think it gets to that point because I think he is going to get some, because if Barr is going to try to tech fall him, you're going to get points by proxy through escapes and everything else. Give me Barr by major decision. Does it get to tech fall? Potentially. And then at heavyweight, this is one where Ohio State is going to be definitively favored in. But the gap's not wide. The margin isn't out of reach. This isn't one where I'm saying, oh, this is a guaranteed loss for Cole, pack it up, better luck next time to, the dual meet's out of reach. And then most of the fans are still invested. Some of them are on the way out to beat the traffic at that point. This one is still going to be worth the price of admission because Mirasola is not far off. He nearly had Godali. He was an early escape away from making things interesting with Ferrari. He beat Ben Keeter. I've seen Mirasola, even in these losses, just get better each time he goes out there to wrestle, and that's the point of all this. However, I do see Mirasola as a version of Nick Feldman, who is now going into his third season as the starter for Ohio State, if I'm not mistaken, at heavyweight. Mirasola is in year one. So it's year one versus year three, and that's what's happening here. Mirasola is the inexperienced wrestler compared to a very experienced heavyweight class. This is a loaded heavyweight class in terms of veteran experience and the talent overall. Yes, Younger Bastida is going to be the clear-cut favorite, but there are so many guys that have just been around in the heavyweight in this heavyweight class for a while, and Mirasola is the newcomer in this instance. I think Feldman wins, but I think it's by a takedown. Because both of these wrestlers are now, if Mirasola can get to a shot and finish, that is the key. It's being able to finish off some of these shot attempts. He makes this one a lot more interesting than it being definitively Nick Feldman. So I will go Feldman just because, again, not an ideal setup for Mirasola in terms of, hey, you're inexperienced. Feldman's been doing this for a couple years more than you have. So be it. But Mirasola, it would not be the shocking upset if he were able to pick up the win here against Feldman. And it would, as Jeff has pointed out, build a ton of confidence for Mirasola, who certainly needs it going into the Big Ten tournament because he is right there. Hey, that is where we're going to end things on this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. So the projection holds true in my opinion. Penn State takes 8 out of 10. I'm going to give Mendez and Feldman the win for Ohio State. Penn State, the rest of them, I think they win, and bonus points in a lot of these weight classes as well. Let me know your score predictions. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. Thanks so much for joining me on this episode. Appreciate you stopping by. Really do, because this one's being recorded later at night going into Friday here. So as you can tell, I imagine if you're watching on the YouTube side of things, but I really appreciate it. All the week we've had comprehensive coverage and trying to get as many perspectives as possible for Penn State versus Ohio State. It's been a blast. I can't wait for this dual meet, and we're also going to recap it live from the Bryce Jordan Center. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss out here on conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams.